Blessed to be a part of your day. Let's find out what's happening on the right side. Out to Washington, D.C., Michael Joyce joining us from the Republican National Committee. Michael, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here, KIDO Talk Radio. So what's the latest from Washington?
Oh, well, I think the American people are ready for Congress to move on and get some work for the American people now that there was no collusion, no obstruction. So,
sure. On the other hand, that really isn't going the way of the press, is it now?
Not at all. They're going to double down on what's happening, and they're going to keep moving on with their political witch hunt against this president. And unfortunately, the Democrats are going to follow suit and do the same. But, yeah, I think the American people, after 2 years of watching the Mueller report, I think they're ready for Congress to go back to work.
Yet Congress is going back to work in another level, looking to talk to Attorney General Barr, looking to talk to Robert Mueller and others. How does this do the work of the American people?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not. The issue is that Democrats, as soon as they saw that the Mueller report was going to completely exonerate this president, they're going to continue forward with their political vendettas. So, yeah, Jerry Nadler, Adam Schiff, they're going to move forward with their political vendetta by issuing more subpoenas and wasting more time of the American people's time. And, yeah, we're seeing that play out now. It's pretty disturbing. And I think when voters head to the polls in 2020, they need to ask themselves, so I'm going to vote for a party that has spent the last 4 years obstructing and resisting everything that our president has done and have turned the House of Representatives into their own investigative process? Or do I want to vote for a party who has passed tax reform, has actually gotten things done for the American people? So, yeah, I think the longer they drag this thing out, the bigger the issue they're going to have in 2020.
And reminding everybody, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM with Kevin Miller in the morning. And yet, they can't seem to help themselves when it comes to impeachment. As you mentioned, top Democrats leave open option of impeaching Trump after the Mueller report. I don't know if you were watching any of the shows yesterday. I was, and poor Rudy Giuliani, he was just flustered after 3 interviews, and Jake Tapper just wouldn't give up. And it's interesting, and if you could expand upon this, how every allegation of the president is credible, yet when we take a look at getting the FISA warrants, what happened with the FBI, he should just move on, that's not important. It's not. There's no two sides to the story. It's just one to get Trump.
Right. And, Attorney General Barr said we need to go back and we need to go look at the investigative process that led up to this. The fact that a Democrat-funded dossier launched the FISA warrant, and the fact that in the FISA court, they did not tell them that the dossier was paid for by the Democrats and that it was opposition research. And that's what was used to launch an entire, one of the widest investigations we've ever had in our country. It's absurd. And I think it goes back a step further, too, which, Russia meddled under President Obama's watch. And if you look at everything that President Obama did in his tenure, he was the true Russian stooge here, and he was the true Putin puppet here. If you look at the Russian reset in 2008 when Hillary Clinton's hitting the reset button, the New START agreement where we gave up some of our nuclear arsenal, Russia didn't give up anything. You go look at Ukraine and Crimea, what happened. Every single thing that happened under President Obama led up to the cyber attack that happened in 2016, and that happened under his watch. But then also, as we know, Obama's DOJ and Comey's FBI did some things there that launched a baseless fishing expedition into President Trump, and we need to go back now and investigate the investigators.
Right, and it seems very odd that President Obama was warned about this. By the way, Michael Joyce went with us from the RNC. Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580. And Michael, we take a look at Mitt Romney, who warned of what was going on in 2012, was laughed at, was this, that, and the other. And then you had the reports in 2014, as you've mentioned, what was going on in 2016. You've got the transcripts released by the House of Page and Strzok, and reads like a daytime soap opera.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. When Mitt Romney called Russia our number one geopolitical foe, you have President Obama turn around and say the Cold War called, they want their foreign policy back. And then you speed up to 2016, and Susan Rice is telling the White House to knock it off when they start finding out that Russia is meddling in our elections. So, yeah, it's kind of bizarre that they just blatantly ignore what's happened with Russia throughout the years. And then you talk about President Trump, who's actually been tough on Russia. And, yeah, it's kind of bizarre. And I think it all goes back to 2016 with with the FISA warrant and everything else, we need to go back and figure out what happened there. So, the Attorney General has already come out and said that we need to investigate the investigators. But, the American people need to hold some folks accountable here. And that starts with everyone in the mainstream media who pushed this Russia collusion hoax for the past 2 years. And, of course, the Democrats who, like you said, are not only focused on the fact that they're going to keep moving the goalposts and keep trying to drag out this political vendetta against our president, but they're also looking at, what's going to happen here in 2020 and say, you had your chance and now here we are. And, it's ridiculous. The American people should be incredibly upset that the millions of dollars that were wasted over this entire hoax and the phony lies that have been pushed to them in the media as well.
What should we be looking out for this week, if anything?
This week, I think you need to look at what Adam Schiff and Jared Nadler are doing already. They're working on the impeachment movement already. You already have Al Green and Rashida Tlaib in the House who've already launched resolutions for impeachment proceedings. But I'm curious to see now what Nancy Pelosi and House Democrats do. It's kind of becoming a litmus test on the left now, is whether or not you support impeachment. So I think it's going to be interesting to see which Democrats come forward and say we need to move forward with those proceedings. And I'm curious to see if there's a single Democrat in Washington or elsewhere who's actually focused on getting back to work and saying, the report exonerated the president, let's move on and get to work. But I don't think you're going to see that. I haven't seen it yet. It would be interesting if anyone actually did that.
Well, Michael, we appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, and you have a great day. Thank you for all you do with the RNC, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. If you missed some of the shows, Kellyanne Conway had this to say yesterday on This Week.
Why? Because they found no crime, no conspiracy. That was the central premise. That is what everybody, including your next guest, Adam Schiff, said time and again, dozens of times, hundreds of times, in print, on Twitter, on TV. And I think there's a couple other things in the Mueller report that are very important. Not only was obstruction of justice not found, that there was complete compliance. So as Mr. Barr, Attorney General, has also said, that the sheer compliance, the millions of pages of documents, the 500 witnesses, the 2,800 inquiries, the subpoenas, on and on, all of this means that $25 million of taxpayer money, the 2 years that we've been doing this, that they were never interfered or impeded. So there was no obstruction.
There we have it. Kellyanne Conway speaking about this. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. By the way, Senator Mike Lee, talking about this as well and saying, look, there was no collusion. Mike Lee of Utah doing some of the shows. And it's good to see that the senator from Utah getting out and getting in public and such. He's right. There is no collusion. And yet it doesn't stop the devious little libs. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Let's take a listen to Senator Lee.
Like some of them are inclined to go down that road. But what we've got to remember, Bob, is that the number one takeaway from this report is that there was no collusion. We've got people who, for the last 2 years, have been using the Russians' attempt to undermine the legitimacy of our electoral process, an effort within this country to undermine this president and the process by which he was elected. But there was no collusion. It isn't there. Right?
There was no collusion. Thank you, Senator Lee. Jim, waking up in Middleton, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Kevin. Kevin, it's pretty sad that I don't see the passion and the Republicans going on the offense to push against this. Not just the Republicans, any fair-minded person that believes in law and order, to push this back and say, we're going to investigate who perpetrated this from the beginning. And 2 years of false media coverage and lies and just a waste of time, not to mention the biggest, what am I looking for? The abuse of power, Kevin. I don't see that coming. Oh, well, there's no collusion. We need to get on and move on and this and that. No, you need to put some people behind bars. This is the worst crime in my lifetime, in political history, Kevin. I've never seen anything like this. This is like a third world country, and the Republicans are just soft pedaling again, and just kind of want to just kind of move on, get along, go along to get along, so to speak. I want to see some offense, and I want to see some teeth and people starting to roll their sleeves up.
No, I totally agree with you. The only person that seems to be doing that, Jim, is President Trump.
Exactly. This guy is a fighter, and you just have to admire him. I don't see any fire in any of the Republicans, maybe one or two. Absolutely none. They're just a disgusting party. And, Kevin, Jesus Christ had one Judah. Poor President Trump has dozens of them up there in Washington that claims to be on his side. And this guy continues to fight, doesn't back down. This is what we wanted from the Republican Party all this time. And we're just sitting here waiting like, what's going on? How come these people are not putting up the good fight and pushing back? But yet the left will still carry the torch on a lie, Kevin. They all knew it was a lie 2 years ago. Van Jones called it a lie. Many people in CNN, I seen it, Kevin, and heard it. They kept this alive for ratings and the people that hate Trump. That's all this was kept up in the media for, and what have you. Not to mention, an outsider like Trump is doing everything that these people on both sides of the aisle, I want to be polite here, only talked about. And this guy's showing them up. Anyway, Kevin, I'll leave it with that. I'm a little passionate this morning when I'm hearing the Republican RNC guy there talking about soft pedaling. There's no collusion. There's no collusion. What are you going to do about it? Anyway, Kevin, there it is.
Well, we appreciate the passion every morning. Thank you, Jim.
You bet. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up, what happens when the government doesn't enforce its borders? Isn't it up to the citizens to do the same thing? We'll talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Well, this just in, the Philadelphia Flyers removed the Kate Smith statue outside the arena because apparently Kate Smith, the young lady that has that iconic version of God Bless America, well, they dug back into her past and she apparently said some racist songs. We'll get into that at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Crazy that if you listen to today's popular music that plays off of race and everything else, that seems to be okay. But Kate Smith, judging her by today's standards, is not. We'll talk a little bit about that. But here's a story that, there's two stories. We'll start with one. We will start our day focused. We will start our day rolling, if you will. But here you have these folks on the American-Mexico border, and they were so frustrated, they were so angry that the Border Patrol is overwhelmed. You know the old saying, if you want a job done right, you go do it yourself. Well, they went to the border, and they started enforcing the border. That's right. They would go down there, and when they'd see, as President Trump calls them, the illegals, and if you're breaking the law, you're doing something illegally, well, then, bottom line, you should be detained. So what these people would do is that they would go to the border, and when the illegals would come by, they would hold them at gunpoint, detain them lawfully, and wait till the Border Patrol came there. Apparently, the FBI had a problem with it. The FBI said, don't do it anymore. And apparently, these guys on YouTube were just blowing it up. The man, Larry Hopkins, the leader of, and they never say left wing, but it's a right wing militia group, is accused of impersonating law enforcement and detaining immigrants crossing from Mexico at gunpoint, has been arrested by the FBI. Mr. Hopkins was arrested once before in 2006 on suspicion of impersonating a police officer. The group that Hopkins leads says that they only give verbal citizens arrests to the crossing border illegals, but videos have shown the group dressed in camouflage and heavily armed. Now, they say Hopkins has a long arrest record. Should he be imprisoned? For me, I don't know much about the story, but I have to say, if you want a job done right, you have to do it yourself. Here's our own Jeff Paul on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM.
Videos posted earlier in the week show members of the group dressed in military-style outfits, armed with guns. And you can see them at times ordering migrant families to sit on the ground, where they then call the real Border Patrol. On Friday, federal authorities warned private groups like this to stop policing the border, but the group insists it's playing a vital role.
Apparently, the Border Patrol can't do everything. If these guys want to do it on their own time, what's the issue?
Customs and Border Protection says it does not endorse private groups taking law enforcement matters into their own hands, saying that the interference could have public safety and legal consequences for all involved.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's get you to work safely and on time. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, traffic and weather together. Good morning, Dave.
A group of just under 400 migrants were apprehended west of Lukeville, Arizona. What is telling about this is that we've been speaking about these large groups, family units that have been coming to the border and turning themselves in. The majority of it was made up of children. There were 199 children accompanied by parents, and there were 31 children that were by themselves. And we're talking about infants all the way up to 16 or 17 years old. Smugglers are exploiting these very vulnerable people. They're dropping them off in the middle of the desert. Right now, and it's raining right now, but during the summer months, the heat is going to take a toll on these.
It's going to be a very deadly, deadly summer. We hope that former President Obama is happy with this. I am not happy with this story that we will share with you right now from the Washington Examiner. And by the way, why this isn't front page stories across America really goes to show you the importance of a show like Kevin Miller, a show like Glenn Beck, a show like Sean Hannity, and a show like Lars Larson. And we'll speak with Lars coming up on our right-wing Monday morning chatterbox. But however, I'm not making this up here. Armed Mexican troops disarmed 2 United States soldiers while they were on the American side of the border, according to the defense officials quoted in this story. Now, what the Mexican troops were doing on the American side of the border, I don't know. U.S. Northern Command said in a statement that 5 to 6 Mexican military personnel questioned 2 U.S. Army soldiers who were conducting border support operations this month. The U.S. soldiers were in an unmarked Customs and Border Protection vehicle near the southwest border city of Clint, Texas. Officials confirmed that the Mexican troops were armed with what seems to be rifles. Their rifles were raised when they saw 2 SU soldiers and then took a pistol from one and put it in the vehicle. According to officials talking to CNN, the 2 Americans obliged in an attempt to de-escalate a potential volatile situation. Throughout the incident, U.S. soldiers followed an all-established personnel and procedure protocol, which said de-escalate the situation. They were on our side of the American border. Amazing. So here you have Mexican troops incurring into the border, detaining U.S. troops, and really nothing is done about it. What is really going on the border? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Really, what is happening on our southern border? What aren't they telling us? When you think about this, that you have Mexican troops detaining, pointing their weapons at our troops doing their job. For me, it's time to bring in the strikers, the drones, and everything else. Don't you? Let's talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Your thoughts, your views concerning the border crisis. You've got a guy who went down there, decided to detain the illegals. What happened? He got arrested. That's right. Also, this disturbing story where our troops were on the border doing their own thing on the American side of the border. And what happened? Well, what happened? All of a sudden, boom, they get detained by the Mexican military. Now, if the Mexican military is on our side of the border, isn't that an invasion?
A group calling themselves the United Constitutional Patriots is posting videos on social media of them stopping, with guns out, migrants purported to have illegally crossed the border near Sunland Park, New Mexico.
Okay, guys, our morning's starting here. They're El Salvadorians.
They're seen on video turning the captives over to Border Protection agents, but the group is not a government agency. They're acting on their own, and people don't like that.
I don't think that's right. If they're going to be apprehended, they should be apprehended by the proper authorities.
Even the ACLU is trying to have them stopped. Eben Brown, Fox News.
There you have it. Your thoughts. We go to Max in Garden City. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Max.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. How was your Easter?
My Easter was very very religious, very spiritual, Max. And yours?
Ditto. It was the best Easter I've had in a long time. You know, I've been giving this border situation a lot of thought, as many of us have. And I have an answer, and I'm serious. I'm not making light of it. We need to conquer, we need to liberate the people of Mexico. The people of Mexico have lived under subjugation in a failed government under the tyrannical control of various drug leaders and organized crime, which basically is the substance of their government. We need to move in with a military force. It's going to be cheaper than what we've spent playing around in the Middle East and gaining nothing. Let those guys over there kill each other in the Middle East. We have a threat right here. To put it in two ugly words, invade Mexico. As we roll in, the people are going to throw flowers in our way, like Patton coming in Italy. And once we've conquered Mexico, turn over their government to a constitutional form, like we did to Japan, a Marshall Plan. They could be one of our best allies.
Didn't Ron Paul get into trouble saying that several years ago? You might have been in China at the time, but I think Ron Paul actually did say that, and I can't help but agree. I mean, if they're going to send their troops patrolling our border in our territory and detain our troops, then, you know, we've got the world's greatest military. I think it's time that we use it.
If we can put the A-10 thuds out there on the border and clean out any pockets of strength they've got, typical tactics, go in with air power, heavy artillery, back it with armor and troops, I bet you it would be more of a rout than Operation Desert Storm.
Well, especially
no opposition.
I don't think that the Mexican military would mind. We need to just destroy these narco-terrorists, these cartels, and put a legitimate government in there.
But you see, finding those cartels, locating, identifying, would require cooperation that the Mexican government would never give you. So go in, assuming that Mexico is an occupied country, and go in and root out the occupiers, door to door, house to house, town to town. In the end, this will be profitable for the United States.
Well, we'd have more oil, and life would be good.
And we could take down the wall. We don't need the wall if we can slam these buggers around. America has the might. We don't have the will.
Now,
but if we,
Max, not only are you a doctor, but you're a best-selling author and you're a businessman. So, you know, we've tried to ship some of our jobs to Mexico. We've tried to ship some of our agriculture to Mexico. Mexico just doesn't seem to want to prosper. Is it because the whole thing is corrupt? Look, Acapulco is not safe anymore in Mexico, and the media does a grave disservice by not covering all the people that have been killed and kidnapped by going to Mexico.
The people of Mexico are wonderful, warm, very clever people, but they're living under the boot heel of organized crime. Their very government is, you could say the same for the IRS, but their government truly is organized crime. You step out of line in Mexico and you'll end up dead. There's no freedom in Mexico. There's no government. There's no rule of law. They are they're on the edge of chaos. They can't even stop Guatemalans from crashing in over their small southern border. It's time we moved in.
Can they not stop them, or do they refuse to stop them?
I honestly believe they cannot stop them. As you may or may not have heard, several Mexican army units are in rebellion, and they work directly for the cartels. The government can't and won't tell them otherwise, because in a debate, the government will lose. It's a sad situation. And we have people like Barack Obama, what a communist pig, and people like Hillary Clinton, another thieving, lying piece of garbage. They have just shoveled it aside, said, don't worry about it. I've got my money. I've got my wall. I'm happy. Well, as we're jailing them and trying them in the U.S., we need to pull out of the rest of the Middle East. Let them handle themselves. It's their problem. Our problem is Mexico. Viva la United States. Los Estados Unidos Americanos. Just go over the border and crush anything in the way.
Max,
it's brutal, but it's war.
Thank you for the call, Max.
All right, buddy.
Bye-bye. David in Nampa, by the way, if you're just tuning in, talking about the border crisis, a militia leader has been arrested for doing the job the Border Patrol is just overwhelmed to do, detaining the illegals until they can be arrested, and Mexican troops have disarmed Americans. They're safe now, but it's being underreported. David, back to you.
Yeah, invading Mexico is a little much. Yes, beef up the border. Yes. You know, in Arizona, how many years have you gone on the highway and occasionally you'll see a sign, maximum security prison, do not pick up hitchhikers? Well, in parts of Arizona, they have human trafficking zones. Do not pick up hitchhikers. It is disgusting. Don't invade Mexico. Make the Mexicans clean up themselves, and here's how you do it. You make it more expensive. Don't close the border. Beef up the border. Okay, but don't close the border like Trump wanted to do. Say, you know what? We're going to stop drugs flowing into Mexico. And we're going to do that by not having the border go easy. We're going to make everything an inspection. So a 30-minute trip into Mexico is now going to take you 8 hours, 9 hours. We did that once, and boy, did the Mexican government behave itself. Remember, there was a guy who was tortured to death and murdered?
The DEA agent, right?
Yeah, just do that. Okay.
Yeah, what about this, though, David?
Yeah, drone it.
Right, but here's the other. Why don't we just tax the heck
out of all
the money that is being sent back, sir?
You know, 12 years earlier, no, maybe 13, they said it was the second or third. I think drugs and oil were larger. Now it's just oil, maybe. Remittances are the largest. Yeah, they take about 25% right off the top. Let's be nicer than them. Let's take 20. Okay? And by the way, I come from L.A. In any post office, you go to L.A., they have information how to send money back to Mexico. So, you know, they have voting booths in L.A. so people can vote in Mexican elections. What's wrong with that? But, yeah.
Look, and here's the uncomfortable thing. No one wants to take this on. No one wants to take it on here. Look, we're right next door to the Mexican consulate here in Idaho. It's big business for Idaho to do business with the Mexican government. And nobody wants to say, well, wait a minute. Why aren't we looking out for Americans?
Yeah, I know. It's like I don't want part of the country to be written off as a no-go zone. And by the way, you know, in Mexico, there's a song, and it mentions a hotel. I don't know if it exists, called the Hotel Zona Rosa. Do you know what Zona Rosa means?
I hope it's not a swear word.
No. It means pink zone. What that means is they will try to enforce the law in the pink zone. You know, like you mentioned Acapulco. I imagine a lot of Acapulco is a pink zone. Outside those pink zones, it's pretty much DIY, except they don't allow guns. They have one of the most restrictive gun control in this hemisphere. And, of course, when guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. So, yeah, most of Mexico is basically written off. Okay? They do not enforce it. And as for the cops, go to any Federale station in Mexico and look at the VIN numbers, assuming there are VIN numbers on them. And it will be a stolen American SUV, because American SUVs are very popular in Mexico. So, yeah,
Well, there we have it, David. Thank you for the call. Let's go to Don in Boise with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Don.
Hi,
Don.
Good morning. How are you?
We are awake and rolling on the right. And you, sir?
Yeah, I'm kind of there, too.
All right. Go ahead.
I just would like to weigh in on Mexico. Invading Mexico is like the most un-American thing I have ever heard. I was appalled when I heard it. There are neighbors, and you lift your neighbors up. You don't tear them down. You don't point guns at them. You don't threaten them. You know, you build people up. You don't rip them down. And that seems to me to be a recipe for success. And so you build the people up in Mexico that are doing good things, and you know, you discourage the people that aren't. But invading other countries is not an American thing that I can see. You know, when there's a Hitler, sure. But, geez, you know, the rhetoric of this country needs to slow down to where people can actually have intelligent thought. Thank you very much.
All right, there we have it. A vote not to invade Mexico. So far, it's 1-1. What do you think? Kevin Miller on your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio. You know, how crazy and how radical. I mean, why doesn't Dave Beater run for president? Thinking about it, every other name and no-name Democrat is running for president. Here's the latest. Some no-name congressman from Massachusetts, his big claim to fame, he wants to get rid of the Electoral College.
We need to get rid
of... Oh, whoops, that was Elizabeth Warren. Well, anyway, take my word for it. The latest guy running wants to get rid of the Electoral College. Back to you, Lizzie.
The Electoral College.
Go, girl. Go, girl. Ron Paul Jim joins us now, KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Ron Paul Jim.
Good morning, Kevin. I just wanted to mention that you remember during the Hurricane Katrina, Mexican troops were in Texas.
That was the boss of all hurricanes. Yes, it was almost like it was a giant boss man.
Well, Mexican troops came into Texas to restore order. And it was supposedly legal under NAFTA. NAFTA has a little thing there where it mentions that the countries, you know, Canada and Mexico, their troops can, and our troops can invade those countries in the event of civil unrest to restore order. It's written in NAFTA. And this was one of the issues that, you know, that failed to get mentioned. You know, so I would be concerned that this is where they feel they have a right to come across our border and, you know, check whatever out. You know, they probably felt within their rights. So there's a lot of little details in these trade deals that have, you know, that's what really raised the flag on NAFTA. But, you know, it was also a universal currency mentioned in there, universal IDs. These are things that were all the way back in NAFTA that have been, you can see how far it's progressed since then. Don't we have an ID now that's supposed to be like a passport between these two countries?
Oh, that's right. And then we got the Star card. And look, watch out, Ron Paul Jim. Don't bash the Star card or people will send you a bad email. Here's what I don't understand. Why in the world can a guy like you, me, or whomever have to get these Star cards, and then you have these folks coming in illegally running around like they're the boss man?
It's order through chaos. You know, this is the system of control that the Illuminati designed. You know, control through chaos. It was, you know, they can bribe, blackmail, murder, anything they need to do to keep their agenda rolling, and it looks that way now. You know, we're seeing whistleblowers jailed. We're seeing, you know, a censorship of information. You through the internet, and if they can control it with a simple algorithm,
right?
Well, that just falls in line with what Zbigniew Brzezinski said about a technotronic era, which entire population could be controlled by a very small group of people.
Well, and
information on everyone.
Right, and wait till the robots get a hold of us. Ron Paul, Jim, God bless you. We appreciate you. Let's go to Liberty Linda with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Liberty Linda. How are you?
I'm fine, Kevin, and good morning to you. I just love listening to your show. And, we have a right to protect our borders. They are not immigrants. They are illegals.
Here's what I don't understand, and this is a good point. You know what I'd say to the president of Mexico? You're not the boss man. You don't tell the Americans what to do. If anyone, we're the boss of you. We're the boss men.
Absolutely. You're saying this morning that there's actually Mexican troops pointing guns at us. This is absolutely unbelievable. And our good people trying to protect our country at the border. This sounds more like war at our southern border to me. And, if we do not protect our country, Kevin, we will not have a country anymore. When I was younger, like in the 90s, I worked at a restaurant as a food server. And the bussers used to come up to me and tell me to my face, we are taking over your country, and it's going to happen before you even know it. You won't even know it, and we'll take over your country. And they used to do that to me all the time, and I just kind of laughed, But now we see what's going on in our borders, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. They warned me about this years ago. And so all I can say is thank you for getting the word out. Thank you for letting us know what's going on in our country. And thank goodness we have a president now. I can't even think of what would be going on in our country without our president.
Well, thank God we have the president. Thank God we have the ability to be here. Who knows how much longer we'll have until they get us, because they are trying to get us.
It has nothing to do with who it is. I always feel we should love one another. That's the way I feel. But in the same token, we have to. This is the only country. If our country goes down, the world goes down. So that's the way I feel.
Liberty Linda, God bless. Got to run. Traffic and weather together. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave.